Hey everybody, it's Jasvinder, and welcome to my first ever Periscope broadcast. And we're going to be bringing you every day quotes from inspirational and motivational sources about basically a quote of the day channel, focusing on all the amazing books that I've read over the years and sources of wisdom, either from sort of spirituality, self-development, health, business development, etc. So there's going to be all kinds of topics we'll be getting into as time goes by. But for starters, what we're going to be looking at today. Now, just bear with me. I'm getting the handle on this for the first time. So, like I said, premiere broadcast here. So today's quote is going to come from one of my favorite books of all time, and I've always said that if I was on a desert island and I could only bring one book with me, it would be this one. So, and many of you may not know this one. So here it is. This is a book called Vasistha's Yoga, and it's translated by a guy named Swami Venkatesananda. So don't be intimidated by if that's sort of a mouthful of a name right there. But anyway, this is translated by a Swami from India, and this is a book about, it's basically just essentially a lot of the philosophy of the ancient yoga system. And as you can see, it's a huge book. And I haven't even finished the whole thing myself. They say not to read more than one page a day from this guy. Anyway, so basically, what I'm going to start with for today's episode is, this is probably my favorite quote of all time, and hopefully at the end of the day, I'll have lived my life by this. And here it is. So as it says in the tagline, this today's session is about the psychology of self-effort. So in this book, he's the teacher of Vasistha is talking to his student who's very distraught and having all kinds of just I can't find any meaning in life kind of problems, and what's it all about? And he's very depressed. And so Vasistha tells him at one point, he says, "The wise seeker knows that the fruit of my endeavors will be commensurate with the intensity of my own self-effort, and no fate or God can ordain it otherwise." So that's a mouthful. So this is something that has been said a number of different ways by many different people over the years. But let's get into it. Who is the wise seeker? What does it mean to be a wise seeker? Essentially, what it's wise to seek is your highest self, your greatest potential, to realize that for yourself. So the wise seeker knows that the fruit of my endeavor will be commensurate with the intensity of my self-efforts, and no fate or God can ordain it otherwise. That's pretty powerful stuff. So I know a lot of people out there may be dealing with all kinds of issues where maybe you're unhappy with your job, maybe you're unhappy with your health or your relationships. Maybe you have a relationship that is important to you that's not doing well. Maybe you have a relationship that you want to get out of and you don't know how. Maybe you feel like you're in the wrong career, or you have doubts about yourself because of the family you came from, or the neighborhood you grew up in, or the education that you had or didn't have, or it could be all kinds of things. It could be of a more spiritual nature. It could be your income. It could be anything like that. And it's very common for people to say, well, because of all these other outside factors, it's hard for me to live the life that I really want, and I can't seem to get results because of X, Y, and Z problem that they have. And what this guy is really telling the student right here is, it sounds basic, it sounds like common sense, but in most cases I'll argue that it's not common practice, which is that the fruit of your endeavors, your results, really has only to do with one thing, which is your self-effort, and nothing can deny you the fruit of your own self-efforts. Like he says, no fate or God can ordain it otherwise. So I want to just kind of get into this for a second and not just gloss over the surface of it. So what does it mean to have self-effort? It doesn't just mean actions that you take. Yes, any action has some kind of result, good or bad. But what he goes on to explain is that a sincere self-effort is a thought, a word, and an action that are all in alignment with higher laws pointed at a single goal. These are the kind of actions that will attain coherent results. So let's take now again. That sounds basic, but let's look at what most people do. Most people, well, okay, a lot of people, and I know that I've done this before many times, and I still mess this up sometimes. So maybe you can relate to this, which is that um, you do you perform an action that you don't really want to do on the inside. So let's say you're in a job you don't like. Let's say you're or in a relationship you don't like, or let's say you're doing something and your mind is somewhere else. Your mind is about it could be anything. It could be the weekend. It could be your things you're stressed out about. What that's going to do is that's going to really compromise the quality of the results you're getting, right? So because your thoughts, your words, and your deeds aren't in alignment. So, I think an example a lot of people can relate to, let's say, well, let's just say times in your life when you really went for what you wanted. You had a picture in your mind, and you just went for it, right? Well, what happened? Probably, maybe either you got it or you didn't, but somewhere along the way, you got a result. And if you're really sincere about going after it, then what happens is you look at your results and you go back and look at where you can improve. If you don't really want it, well, then your efforts are going to be really really half-assed, right? Like if you want to go run a marathon, but deep down inside you think you can't do it. Well, you're not going to train very hard. You're not going to watch what you eat or whatever, or you're not going to rest properly or stretch properly. And come the day of the marathon, maybe you don't even run, or you run, but you really underperform. But it's because you're not thinking in coherence with the actions that you're taking. You're putting yourself out there, but not 100%, right? You're thinking about all kinds of other stuff. Same thing if you're talking to somebody in conversation, but you're thinking about something else. Well, where do you think those relationships are at with people like that? They could probably do better, right? So again, this idea that the self-effort are thoughts, words, and deeds that are in alignment with themselves, and that ideas that are coming from any other place, right, are basically motivated by some kind of delusion, and they don't produce desirable results. Let's see here. So he's talking about self-efforts, right? And he says, the fruition of self-effort by which one experiences the good and evil results of past actions is called fate by people. So when you say that you're boxed in by your circumstances, your circumstances really are circumstances. What he's saying, the things that seem like they're outside of your control, these are just the efforts that are affecting you, made by other people. They're the collective efforts or the actions of society, your family, your education system, what have you. And you can say that you are sort of like a victim to these things, or that you're a victim to the momentum of the efforts you've made in the past, like mistakes you've made in the past. This is a really common one. You feel like because things were a certain way in the past, that they'll always be a certain way, that you're stuck, right? And the whole point here is that nothing is more powerful than deliberate, decisive, and aligned action in the present. This has the power to overcome your past. It has the power to overcome your environment. It has the power to overcome anything that you're up against. And so depending on what the nature of the issue is, there may be certain kinds of efforts that are more appropriate, right? So let's say, I think what most people struggle with the most is feeling like they're trapped by the limitations of their own behaviors, and let's say their own subconscious patterns. So an example of self-effort would be to remove yourself from the kinds of environments or the kinds of people that trigger the behaviors you're trying to get away from, if those behaviors are extremely subconscious and compulsive. Like, let's say if somebody has a drinking problem, the easiest thing to do is to stop hanging out with all the people that you drink with. Makes sense, right? You can't maintain the same environment and then say, I'm not going to drink, for example. You go and hang out with the guys are hanging out at the bar, they're all drinking, probably you'll be drinking too, right? So that doesn't work because your idea is, I'm not going to drink anymore, but your actions is you're at the bar with your friends who are drinking. So it doesn't work. But if you say, hey, I've got to, let's say you just distance yourself from those people, or you don't see them in the same environments. You don't go to the bar with them. You go someplace else, like a movie, or they invite you, cook for them, invite them over for dinner. You don't serve drinks, that kind of thing. Or you just find new friends. Well, you're taking an action that's in alignment with your thoughts, and now your results are going to be a lot better. I've had to do a lot of things like this in my life. And once again, really the bottom line here is that your own, you personally, you have the power to overcome all these things, no matter what it is. Don't resign yourself to say that your environment, your friends, your past, your mistakes are going to dictate your future. Your actions right now, there's nothing more powerful than that. And really the core of this philosophy is that you are entitled to the results of your actions. Nothing can withhold those from you. Whatever you do, whatever effort you make to change things in your life, you'll see progress, and that progress will inform you of where the quantity and the quality and the mentality behind your efforts is coming from. And you definitely have the power to make improvements in all those areas to improve the results that those actions are producing. It's actually very simple. Like I said, it's common sense, not necessarily common practice. So that's all for today. This was, again, my first broadcast, so thanks for bearing with me through some technical glitches. Please comment or text me through Twitter directly at J_S_Khalsa, KHALSA, for more information about one-on-one coaching and mentoring that I do. Thanks so much, guys, and hope this inspired you, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.